Are y'all ready to head off the trails? I'm the Cryptid Huntress, Jessica Jones, and I'm ready to take you on a mysterious journey right now. We welcome you to Off the Trails right here on the Spaced Out Radio's YouTube channel. If you guys haven't hit subscribe yet, please do. We would love to have you. Shout out to Bumblefoot for that awesome intro music. I always appreciate that. You guys, please follow us on our social media platforms at Spaced Out Radio. On Instagram is Spaced Out Radio Show. But TikTok, Facebook, and whatever other ones we got. Y'all go find us at Spaced Out Radio. You guys can find me at thecryptidhuntress.com. That's where all of my shows are posted, and all of the events that I'm going to be at are there on my website, including the 2024 Reno Spaced Out Radio Fan Party. I will be there this week. So I can't wait to meet you guys there. Whoever's coming, we're going to have a really good time. We're going to be broadcasting live from Spaced Out Radio next weekend. I think it's Friday night. It's on the 10th. So you guys be sure to tune in. Excuse me. It's going to be me, Dave Scott, Rob G. We got a whole bunch of people coming to interview. So we're going to have a really good time over in Reno. I can't wait for that. So I will not be here next Sunday night. I will be in Reno. Okay. So, but I will be back the next weekend. And you guys can always find me over on my channel throughout the week. Okay, so line items of business. Let's see. Well, we've got the Space Travelers Club. If you guys would like to help, or I was going to say promote. If you want to support the channel, go to the Space Travelers Club. That is our Patreon on Patreon. Okay. Also, I have a Patreon as well. That's the Cryptid Huntress. And shout out to all my members. Shout out to all of our members with the Space Travelers Club as well. Okay, if you guys have any questions about the Reno trip, if you're coming, go to spacedoutradio.com for more information. And you can also send an email to info@spacedoutradio. Okay, so let's get to our show tonight, y'all. I have a fantastic guest here. I have my friend, Brian Minnick, here of Montauk Is Strange. And I got to spend some time with Brian and the whole crew up at Montauk last year. We went on a trip to Camp Hero, and I did some Bigfooting while I was up there, and we explored a Camp Hero, and we're going to talk about that tonight. Brian has just published a brand new book with a lifetime of research of Camp Hero in Montauk, and we're going to get into that tonight. So don't forget that right after this show, After Hours has a really great show set up for us tonight. So go over there right after this show is over tonight. Okay, should we get to our guest or what? Let's do it. Brian Minnick is a longtime Camp Hero researcher, having visited the base since his childhood, and started exploring in a serious fashion in 1994, and has been involved in this research ever since. He has been on several cable TV shows on Montauk, including History, Travel, Science, and the CW, and has met and spoke with the authors of the original book series on several occasions. He shares all of his research and findings on his YouTube channel, Montauk Is Strange, along with Danielle, another longtime Camp Hero explorer. And they have a lot to share. They cover everything from, and they investigate UFOs, cryptids, paranormal, mind control, and of course, for people who aren't familiar with the Montauk program and the Montauk project, it was about MK Ultra mind control. Okay, and a lot of experimentation was done on children and other people there. So please help me welcome to the show my friend Brian Minnick of Montauk Is Strange. Hey, Brian.
How you doing? Thank you so much for having me.
Hey,
it's good to see you. And
man.
Yeah, I'm excited always to talk about this. So.
Oh my gosh.
Topic and everything else.
Oh yeah. Well, okay. So it's so good to have you here, Brian. I know you've been here. You came here last year, but I had to bring you back because you just published your book, and I'm so proud of you. This is a lifetime of research that you put into this. You've dedicated your heart and soul to the research of Montauk. So congratulations on your new book.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's still kind of surreal. And, but yeah, I knew I had to do it just because I collected all this stuff. And that was the basic premise, is to like get it out there to share it. So now I can, have a little more fun with everything as well, because I feel like it did my duty to like do my best to package everything up and share it all. So I mean, I'm still going to be investigating Montauk always. I mean, but I do want to, like, hopefully I'd like to see people like pick up with any of the things that I started and take it from there, or just like maybe find the pieces of information they needed to explore their own way, whatever it may be. I'm just happy anybody else is going to know about it. And that's the main, reasoning. So, but yes, it's been a crazy, like I was typing for like 16-hour days for like a good 3 weeks straight. I felt like almost all starting to feel like Jack Nicholson, like all work and no play. I was going to write a joke, but it was worth it. Everything was totally worth it. And, putting everything I had into it. I didn't know what's going to happen next, and it doesn't matter really, as long as it's done. That's how I feel, kind of.
It's done, but you wrote it down like this has a lot of history. Montauk, for the audience members who are not familiar with Montauk and Camp Hero, I know this could be a lot. It could take a long time to answer this, okay? Because I was going to ask you, can you explain to the audience tonight what is Montauk? Like, what is the Montauk Project? What went on there? Talk about the base, the military base, and give us an idea of what Camp Hero is and what it was used for.
Okay, so Camp Hero was a piece of land that's always had military presence since the very beginning of our country, like starting with George Washington. The Montauk Lighthouse was like the first public works project that we did as a country, and it never stopped from there. It was like the first of everything all through history. There were so many military bases there. So I have like 17 different eras of military history in the book, just to show like they've been there. This didn't start in World War II. So, but the main thing where all the bunkers came about and all the structures at Montauk Point was in World War II. It was like huge guns, a coastal artillery with bunkers, and then it turned into a radar base after for the Air Force. So you had the Army and the Air Force there at one time, and the Navy had a base in town as well. So like all of these things are rumored to connect underground. And then there was a very shady history with between these agencies where there were gaps in service. And in those times, they did do certain trial experiments. So this radar you see here right on the screen is a SAGE radar. And there was only 12 of these in the US. This is the second one built, but it's the first one out in the field. And this is a frequency oscillating radar. So it like hops through frequencies so nobody could jam it. It was anti-jamming. It was like the very high tech at the time, the only of its kind. So the people operating it started to notice that they heard sounds in their head from the radar, like different kinds of sounds, buzzing, popping. And they also realized they could transmit voices that people were talking on the base. They would hear things and start to put together that this is an effect. And then somebody wrote a paper about it called the Frey effect. And that's basically the same thing you see today with Havana syndrome and any kind of directed energy weapon. But this was just a realization at the time. But then, of course, what do is take advantage of something like that. So at the first opportunity, on the very first radar that's in the field, they had these rooms painted on the base. And I actually found the records of when they actually had people create in a dormitory, 4 upstairs rooms were painted in early psychedelic art patterns. And it just so happens in that year they had a few months where the radar was being like shut down and tuned up, and they did some mind control experiments just to see if microwave radar could be influence like audio in people's head while they were doing other things like psychedelic drugs. That was for a short period. They shut it down, and they didn't do anything for a while until later. Then they started having people come for rest and relaxation when the base really had like no mission. And they were just broadcasting general signals upon them. And it was like a mood control experiment. So like over time, things got worse and worse. Got more advanced. But when the base really shut down, that's when they were able to fully try out more stuff. So that's where a lot of the history leads. And then it cuts off when the base closed in 1983. So the rest is speculation. But as far as records go, there was some very interesting stuff. Their base was there for 13 years with no mission. From 1969 to 1982, it was just kind of running under this thing called ADTAC, and that's like the Blackberries of the Air Force that only deal with like other military agencies or other countries. Basically, it's a very shady operation just to be open at that time. Very interesting. The guys that worked there didn't think much of it, but a lot of the history shows that this could have been possible. I mean, there's no way to prove that it's not possible, because there were structures underground that I have records for, like fallout shelters and stuff. So this whole thing about an underground base, they've always said there's nothing under there. but we have plenty of proof in the book, even just to show that there's basements and tunnels everywhere, like underneath the entire base. And the deeper stuff, like the military deep underground bases, that's all guess. Like there's never going to be a real way to prove that, but you can prove that they lied about the other stuff that they shouldn't have lied about, which is basic stuff that's in every base, like basements, tunnels, you know, steam tunnels, things like that.
Well, you've done a lot of exploring there too, and
Yes.
I've been there with you.
Yes,
Okay,
you
and
have.
I'm not saying, I cannot confirm nor deny that I went anywhere near that radar tower. I don't know what anybody's talking about. Okay, but I did get a very good tour. You are the resident expert of Camp Hero, and your knowledge is invaluable. Like it is, and we were actually there with a bunch of Montauk survivors.
Yes.
People who were part of that program as children.
Yeah.
Which by the way, I think it is important to note that people might be familiar with the Montauk Project because of a Netflix series that came out a couple of years ago called Stranger Things.
Yes. And that's
okay.
That's definitely something. I didn't even like touch on the whole Stranger Things part of this whole story. I just went straight into like the structure and the basic, like what was there, the military. But the book, the Montauk Project by Preston Nichols and Peter Moon, they took this base and told a whole nother story. They were basically the first whistleblowers, and you know, it was bordering on science fiction, but yet some things that I found in all this military history actually matches up with some of the stuff that they said, which is very surprising to me as well. And that's the kind of weird thing about Montauk. You never really know, but their story kind of went for many years and got so many people out there exploring, including myself. And we were so into it. That book kind of inspired us all to like go out there instead of just like on Long Island. You have like Amityville, Kings Park, and all these places, but Montauk was like on the map after that book, and everybody was really into the story. And from then, it kind of like I went there until about like when the internet started really like exploding in the early 2000s. I started really researching on the internet and not going there as much. I was kind of disappointed that it turned into a park, and I was bummed that we couldn't go and just explore it like a ghost town anymore and get chased around by strange people. And, you know, we'd have to sneak around. So I took a break for a while. And in that time, other people came and kind of carried it started getting more and more popular until, you know, one day, much later, Stranger Things came about. And I did not know at first, but I realized very quickly that it was based on Montauk. And to confirm it, of course, I don't know if anybody's seen the original script, but I actually found it like right after I talked to you. But they have the script online. You can look up the original script for Stranger Things. It's actually called Montauk by the Duffer Brothers. And if you look in it, like even on the first page, everything's just replaced with Camp Hero and Montauk. They just changed to Hawkins, Indiana, and you know, Hawkins Lab, and they just changed the name basically, and probably copied and pasted the whole document that way. Everything else is identical. So it's literally based off of Montauk and Camp Hero and the story of the Montauk Project, which involves time travel, mind control, and like you said, abduction of people when they ran out of trial. And I do explain the whole story, like the whole legend and everything in a nutshell. And along with all this history and stuff, I wanted to like juxtapose all these hard facts with the pure legend, and like together they really paint like a cool picture. So not leaving one out or the other.
No, well, everybody, I thought it was important to note that the connection there, because just about everybody is very familiar with Stranger Things. It's one of my favorite Netflix. I only watched the first 2 seasons, but
yeah.
And I know there's more. I was actually playing the Stranger Things pinball game at the arcade yesterday. Okay,
oh, wow.
So yeah, and they, but in that, if that is soft disclosure, and the things that they are showing on there, they were doing experimentation with children, doing telepathy and bending spoons and stuff, like that kind of stuff. And as you know, she crushed the Coke can. 11 did with her mind. It's a lot of mind and spirit experimentation, but also they had like an interdimensional underground there, right? Where they called it the upside down.
Yes.
And they had cryptids or creatures and all sorts of like weird interdimensional creatures there. Now, is that part of Montauk as well?
Yeah, so the parapsychology part, like the remote viewing, the telekinesis testing, that does stem from like, I know they did it in obviously the Men Who Stare at Goats. That was at the
Hmm.
Stanford Research Institute in like 1974. So like if Montauk were to do it, it's probably like right after that, basically, because they weren't the first. But in the people always speculated that they did do parapsychology there in the mid to late 70s,
Hmm.
along with like directed energy weapons for some reason. And then what, like you said about the Stargate or like a teleportation, a portal. So I think basically the Stargate part, they did time travel at Montauk. That was the legend. And Brookhaven National Labs, which has always been connected to Montauk. Actually, some people say they're literally connected underground tunnels, but they're connected in the sense that Plum Island, Brookhaven National Labs, and Montauk were all former World War II bases. They were Camp Upton, Fort Terry, and Camp Hero. But all three got turned into major scientific centers. And like Brookhaven National Labs is a sister to CERN. They're the second biggest in the world, and they work with CERN every day. In fact, they have a project called Atlas where BNL and CERN work together on colliders. And they have a couple atom colliders at Brookhaven National Labs.
Yeah, I've read about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I've actually, I do a little bit of research on the Hadron Colliders, and there's
Yes.
one, I believe there's one at Oak Ridge Labs, and they
Yeah.
work with CERN in
Great.
Sweden and on a project called ALICE, ALICE.
Yes.
Okay,
I've
and so
seen.
it's very similar to the Brookhaven program that they're doing. So it makes you
Yeah.
kind of wonder, uh, are they
I think there's
opening
one
up
in
dimensional
Chicago too.
portals?
I think I
Chicago?
just saw that there's one in Chicago somewhere or near Chicago.
Oh, yeah, there
Um,
might be one near Atlanta too. I mean, I don't know. I've heard there's several of them.
Yeah,
Uh,
and they're all like DOE sites,
Department of
so you
Energy.
could probably look them up, but I don't even know them. But I just know that, Brookhaven is right there. And I know they collide atoms and make new universes and black holes. So a lot of people, when they first announced it in the news to local Long Islanders that they were going to do this test in 2012, they were going to make possible new black holes or new universes by colliding atoms in the atom collider. And when they did it, that's when the Mandela effect, a lot of people started talking about it and blaming it on that BNL story at first. But I think that's kind of lost its over the years. Like now CERN is definitely like the main topic. I've seen CERN a lot mentioned everywhere. So, but I think it's important to note that in Stranger Things, the lab is it looks like a building at BNL, not so much the radar, because they couldn't, recreate the radar as well in Stranger Things. And it wouldn't really make sense. But it does. I think it's a combination of BNL, like Hawkins Lab and Stranger Things, is like a combination of BNL and Camp Hero in a way.
Wow. Well,
It's amazing.
well, it's interesting. It is, and they actually filmed Stranger Things near where I live here in
Oh, I
Georgia.
didn't know that.
Oh
Oh, that's
yeah,
awesome.
so it's all filmed here. Even Hopper's cabin and everything was like in the pumpkin patch, not
Oh,
too
get
far
out.
from where I lived. Yeah.
That's so
So
cool.
I know it's
I
all
assume
it's
they
all
were all like,
connected.
yeah,
Yeah,
that really is. I mean, you guys have a lot of good shows. Actually, I
we
always see
do.
like the peach, at the end of the filming. I'm like,
Oh yeah,
yeah,
we do.
doing
Well,
very good.
oh yeah, yeah. Well, it's just so interesting how connected and how intertwined it is. Like the people that I know now are with the Montauk Project, and I felt a connection to it as well because of the remote viewing that I do.
It's
And that is part of the program that they were using there. It was like remote viewing and it was mostly mind control, like MK Ultra, and to
yeah,
watch some of those films and documentaries about the Montauk Project, it is heartbreaking.
yeah.
Heartbreaking because
That's
a lot of children were put into that program. A lot of kidnapped. I mean, it was like they were kidnapped and people from the street, just kind of taken off the
and I've
street.
met so many people that have told me that they felt involved, and it's a really personal story. It's a hard story, and I really didn't include a lot of that because each one is like its own book in that way. And I sent, like I was saying to you before, DHP Dark Hour Paranormal did a great documentary that had all these stories from so many survivors, and he did it better than I could have ever. That's one topic that I would happy to other people to cover because there's so much of it. It's a huge field of information. So
Wow.
yeah, it's that documentary where they interviewed some of the I think you met in Montauk Chronicles maybe, but
Yes.
there was a couple where they were really gritty and very hard hitting like that, and just hearing the people's stories are always but that's one thing that drives a lot of people to look into it. And there is a sense for everybody that feels like that goes there, that feels something like they feel familiar with it, or they feel like they've been there before, or they feel like they've had dreams about it. It doesn't always mean that you were involved, but maybe in some other timeline, some people believe, or maybe it's just a place that has distortions in time that make everybody feel that way when they go there. Who knows what it might be? But there's ancient things about Montauk too. Like some people think it's the actual origin of Turtle Island. Not everybody, but there's other things that some people think it's a a major ley line intersection there. So that the stories and the guesses go on and on. It's a deep rabbit hole, Montauk.
Yeah, well, the whole area is really special, and I remember being up there. We went to Council Rock, okay, and it's that gigantic piece of quartz, and that's not very far from Camp Hero, right?
Yeah, it's literally only like 5 miles. So,
and that was a major meeting point for all the 13. I think it was the 13 tribes of Long Island.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh man, I'm good.
and that includes the tribes from Brooklyn and Queens, the Canarsie and I forgot the Canarsie were in Queens, and the Rockaways, were in Queens, and the Canarsie were Brooklyn. And even they would come all the way out to Montauk Point to meet at Council Rock, because everybody was kind of in order. Montauk were the chiefs of Long Island at the time. So yeah, that's an amazing, I don't know how that rock got there. I'm thinking it was just a lot of rocks sat on top of the ice and melted in the glaciers. And the big ones, I guess nobody can move, but that one looks like it may have been moved there. So that's a feat unto itself.
It was really odd. I felt a lot of high strangeness in that area. And we even had some potential Bigfoot activity while we were there. And and definitely some kind of strange activity. And I feel like it was more of a spirit kind of thing, like passed over people.
Yeah, that makes sense. That place is really haunted, the manor. And you guys were on the grounds of the manor when you had the Bigfoot experience, right? Because I saw that.
Oh, the Montauk Manor.
Yeah.
That place. Yeah. I would definitely get some like elitist vibes, and I was feeling like that place has to have like underground tunnels.
It does. Yeah.
Oh, I knew it did.
Yeah, they have catacombs. They call them. This rich guy, Carl Fisher, that built the entire town of Montauk. He also built Miami Beach, the city, and he built the first highway across the U.S. from east to west, the Lincoln Highway. From New York to San Francisco, he built that, and then he built Montauk. And they were saying that there can't be tunnels from this. He built the manor and this big tower, and they say, oh, there can't be tunnels out to Montauk Point. But he built like a city in a swamp and a highway across the country. Why can't he build a 5-mile tunnel? I don't get the logic. But this guy built them, and on TV and Sci-Fi Channel, they went down in the tunnels under the manor. It was Lester Holt from like NBC Nightly News, and Richard Dolan from like, he writes books. I think he's on Ancient Aliens and stuff. They got permission to go down there. So I'm like, I got to ask to see if I could get permission, and ask really nicely.
Yeah. I honestly did. Okay, so we were out there late one night. It was me and Long Island Bigfoot Mike, who's in the chat tonight. Hey, Mike. And James Rink. Okay, James Rink with a Super Soldier Talk. And it was us three. What a crazy pair, right? Or not pair, because there's three of us. But we went out there, and it was just us one night. And and I was actually, I was overwhelmed with the energy there. This is at Council Rock, right beside the Montauk Manor. And I felt this horrible feeling like we were being stalked by somebody from Montauk Manor while we were there. I had a terrible feeling the whole time. I thought we might get like kidnapped or something.
I got to watch that over and over, actually, because I put that in a documentary that I edited from like the Council Rock one. And you guys got a lot of EVPs that I don't even think you heard, especially when you felt like you were, if you watch it, I like boosted the volume, and the part where you're like, oh my God, I felt like, you just said like you felt something. And right before that, there was literally like an EVP, like right to you that I boosted. There was like 4 or 5 of them when you, James, and Mike were walking there. And because I did it like over and over. I heard it. So.
Oh, I need to go back and hear that then.
Yeah, I'll send that link to you.
Okay, well then that confirms that I was definitely feeling very dizzy. Like I was surrounded. I felt claustrophobic. Like there were a ton of people like crowding my space, but there was nobody there.
Yeah. You guys were standing in Massacre Valley, they call it. That's where like the Montauk tribe was raided on like a wedding night. And it's like this, they even have a sign there from like the parks, like a historical metal sign. It says Massacre Valley, they call it. And that's like literally where you guys, Well, it's down on the road, like when you look up the valley, so it's not on top of the hill. But
I just got sweaty when you said that because I didn't know
you were
that.
standing like near there, so
Okay.
it makes a
Wow.
lot of sense.
Well,
Then you
I'll
guys found
be
that weird bench with the weird message
the
on the bench.
bench. It
Yeah,
said it was there was a bench with a plaque on it that said something about a girl who had died, but it was really
yeah,
odd.
it
It was
was.
some kind of what was that about?
I wasn't.
Anyways,
I, I was trying to figure it out if they meant like the first bench and they were calling it a girl, or I didn't know. But it was really weird to see. You see stuff like that at
it was like
Montauk.
the last bench she sat on or something, but it was just,
Yeah,
it was the first and the last bench or something. It was just something odd. It was like who would put that? Because death is a serious thing for us humans
yeah,
here. You know what I
yeah,
mean? For us
yeah.
normal humans, and it's not something that we take lightly, and we don't joke about it.
Yeah,
And
makes you not want to
and
sit
so
on
that
that
was
bench.
yeah, it was weird. It made me not want to sit on that bench because it was almost like it was cryptic. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, it
It was
was.
like a cryptic, supposed to be joke, but it wasn't funny.
It almost
About
had
some,
like a threatening kind of sound to it, like a
it did.
threatening connotation.
It did.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
Montauk is strange. Okay.
yeah. It is, yes, indeed. That's why I named it that, just because that's what I was thinking when I did pick the name for the channel too. I did have the book in mind at that point, but definitely been encouraged, especially by a couple people since then. Mike and DHP definitely encouraged me on our first camping trip when I showed him like this big book of stuff. To like, Mike was like, he's like, no, you have to do it. He's like, you're doing it. So
Oh,
I
you
knew,
had to.
yeah, you
Well,
got me.
you're the holder of so much knowledge of that place, and you have explored uh, almost every nook and cranny of that place that you could get to, right?
Yeah,
I mean, and
yeah,
you actually kind of have I don't want to say like a relationship with the staff there, but they know you, right? Because you've been there so
they
often. Some of the
did.
people that work there.
They're now they're all new. I don't know anybody, and that's kind of a good thing because I had met with the last superintendent and like sat in his office with him and talked history and never mentioned a thing about the paranormal for like an hour. And then my other friend that worked there, Joe Lafreno, he was very involved and he's been on a few shows. That's how I met him, on the same TV shows and stuff. And he's retired. He worked there for 20 years. And he grew up in Montauk. He was literally like those kids in Stranger Things. He would ride his bike into Camp Hero when he was a kid with his pack of friends on BMXs, and he thinks he was involved. He's I believe him, but he's actually at hypnotism on regression on shows. I think it was CW or one of those networks. He doesn't work there anymore, so now I just pay, and nobody really knows me. But I do always feel like they know who I am because obviously people have watched our channel that work there, and I figured that out, by the way they reacted. So I'm trying to be careful with certain places now. Now that
Oh
it's
yeah,
like, things are, my name's all over everything, but
they can
otherwise
find.
I'm still have so much to explore there. I'll be crawling all over the place whenever I can. So
Oh yeah. Well, my question to you is, how many people in the town back then during the 70s and 80s? I think it kind of shut down around the early 1980s, right? So
yeah,
how many people in town were a part of that program there when they were doing all these terrible experiments on people? And do people talk about it there? And do you think people would remember if they were a part of that program?
that's a good question. It's a total mixed bag, like from people who say they were involved, from people who totally deny it. Some people were just involved in a regular sense, like the guy who owns the drugstore would bring in prescriptions to the guys at the base. There's like normal things that happened as well. But then there's also the fact that when they first turned the radar on, it would shut the TVs and radios off in town every 12 seconds as the radar. My latest video is, I finally found a picture of a video of the radar actually turning. And I've been looking for that my whole life. So every 12 seconds it turns. And when it does, but like every cars would buzz, the radio in the car would go into static, the TV would go to static. And you have to think, the human mind is also being hit by the same beam. And what's happening to our mind, the TV shows you what's happening to it. It goes to static. The radio shows you how it responds. It totally blacks out. But what happens to our mind? Obviously, something similar is happening every 12 seconds. So the people in town all know the story of how they were affected, whether they believe it or not. That's like the storyline. And being that radar is running and scientifically microwave is hitting you, I mean, there was some kind of effect, whether people realized it or not. So they were involved to some degree as it was in operation. I mean, at least
Uh-huh.
in that sense, but it's a mixed bag. So some people are very sensitive about it. Other people don't like people coming out and asking all these questions. and don't like Stranger Things. Other people love it. Maybe some are capitalizing on it. Some are joining in. Some have true stories. And every time I've heard stories of people who ask somebody about something in Montauk, it's always a crazy tale. And it's like Mike just talked to somebody in a deli, and what he told me, I was like, what? So I wrote down 30 locals that told me stories that were connected with the base in the book. And, with all the people I've gone there with, like in the early days, there's like 30 or 40 different people I wrote about in the book, friends and different people that I've explored there with back then. So there's a lot of input from so many other people in the book, like, all of their stories and information, and either other writings on Montauk. I quoted a lot of early writings from the internet and other books. So I tried to make like a whole picture of like the entire story. And so, yeah, it's a huge, crazy wormhole. It's not even a rabbit hole. It's like a wormhole.
It's a portal. It's a portal. You know what? The one thing that I noticed when I got there, I was expecting to see a statue of the Demogorgon in the middle of Montauk.
Yeah, you would think.
I really was. I thought that they would capitalize on that, but I got there and there was not a peep of it. Nobody talks about it there. Nobody.
That's a good point. I never thought of that. It's like, Salem, Massachusetts, you have everything is tourist based, I never even thought of that, but it's like mum's the word when you go out there. You wouldn't know anything about it.
Well, it's kind of classy. It's like a high class kind of nice place for, the people who, it's the Hamptons, right? It's kind of like the Hamptons.
East Hampton, yeah. And East Hampton has some of the most expensive houses in the country. It's, it's one of the highest end parts of the Hamptons. And then just beyond that is Montauk. But also Montauk's kind of wild in the summer. A lot of people go there and party. It's like more new money, so they're not as like typical Hampton, like pinky out. It's wild. Sometimes you just see people doing crazy things there, but they might, I don't know if they're loaded or they're not, but they're acting like, like they're on a party vacation when they're there. So it's very busy in the summer.
And it's right on the tip of the ocean. It's on the ocean. It's on the very top tip of Long Island right there.
Yes.
And it's beautiful with the ocean there and the cliffs right there, the bluff where we went and hung out a couple of times. And we had that black helicopter fly over us that day. Yeah. That was weird.
We like waved and it popped the wheelie for us. It kind of like tilted the nose back for us.
It acknowledged our presence. Yeah, it was really odd.
Beautiful places. Like, I'm glad you got to see the bluffs and everything too, because it is one of my favorite places. I feel like it's a magical, beautiful kind of place, and nature is taking it back over. So I really question if anything currently is going on. If there's a deep underground, maybe there's something still going on, but on the surface, it's just all nature taking it back over. And there's a lot of deer and huge hawks and everything there now taking over the park.
Well, what I noticed, it's not just beautiful, but it's right there on the ocean, and it's somewhere and it's amongst all these beautiful, rich, lavish houses and stuff. Yeah. It's very unsuspecting. It's like hidden in plain sight. Okay. Yeah. Something so dark and sinister in that area that's so beautiful and serene. It's a great place to hide.
That's like the essence of Camp Hero, what you just said, because like they actually had bunkers that were disguised as like little Cape Cod fishing houses and like on the bluffs, and that's the whole like premise of Camp Hero, was to like hide and disguise. They had a gymnasium inside of a church and so on, just to disguise everything. So like, why wouldn't they disguise a secret base? Like, people always forget that part. They've been going through lengths to disguise everything for decades and decades. So what you said was exactly like the definition of Camp Hero, basically hidden in plain sight. Always has been. Yeah. It
is. Well, and we even came across like in the bunker section, and I know James Rink, our friend James, had said that he remembered being there and getting thrown out of the window there one night, and when he was younger. And so, we came across like a bowling alley in there and stuff. And there's all sorts of interesting stuff there. And a church it looked like a church, but it was actually a gymnasium, right?
Yeah,
or there was something inside the church.
Yeah, it's a gymnasium. There used to be basketball hoops that you could still play on in there.
But it was disguised as a church. Can you tell the audience why it was disguised as a church?
Yeah, so this was disguised as a church. The whole base was like disguised, and all the guys lived in like barracks that were like it wasn't a regular straight rows of houses. They were all crooked and painted different colors because air raid attacks. They had planes that were worried about bombing from the air, and also for surveillance. They didn't want, the Germans in World War II to know where they were and get any like fire coming from the sea, because it's only like a mile or two from the ocean, but it's up on a bluff 100 feet over the ocean. So there were a lot of submarines hitting stuff like off the coast of Montauk. You could see like explosions all on the shore, and they shot it. They never shot in hostility with the Montauk guns, but they were like locked and loaded and everything ready to go. And there was one submarine that came up on the beach, but everything was disguised, and like it looks like a house, but you go up and like knock on it and it's concrete. It's not like siding. And is all that stuff was just for like getting math to like figure out where the shots are going to go and stuff like that, and to like run the spotlights. It was nothing really exciting, but the cool part is like all those bunkers are connected with underground tunnels that go, connect just for basic reasons. Like you have to get from one to the other and run all the wires and cables and communication lines where you could go and like fix one if it broke. You can't do that out in the middle of like, out in the open and everything.
Wow.
So,
well, and there's also like little servicing houses and stuff that have elevators that go down into the ground too, right? And stuff like that's kind of unsuspecting.
Yeah. Yes, there's like a motor pool with a car lift that some people have thought was like a drive-on elevator. And there's rumors that there's a house somewhere in Montauk that you could drive in. The whole house is just like a way to go down. So there's like an elevator for personnel, there's a staircase, and then there's like in the garage a drive-in elevator for vehicles. And then there's plenty of vents and communication things. And I don't know who said this originally, but it's very interesting. And that would be a smart way to easily get underground, get onto like a rail or something and take it out to a few miles away. It's very doable, and you wouldn't want to do something that like other people would think of or find eventually. So if there is something down there, I still haven't figured it out, but I'm trying really hard. So I don't want to just make guesses and go with it though. So like I'll stay definite for the things I could find, and the rest is just a guess like everybody else.
Oh yeah. Well, I remember when I was there and we were exploring the area, there were a lot of manhole covers, and
everywhere.
a lot of those. And Robin has a question for you. Hey, Robin, would Brian discuss the holes and underground openings he's come across walking around there?
Oh yeah, definitely. I've started mapping them, but there's so many. There's like round metal lids, and then there's like these square hatches that a lot of the times have a square cement poured over the top, like a lid. But a lot of times people always break them back open. It's like a constant war of them sealing them and kids like breaking them open. So we recently just found a few, actually. Last 2 times we went, we found one, and there's ladder rungs going down. One of them is just like a well or something, because we figured out there's like a small hole at the bottom. So it must be for water. But then the one next to it went down and we couldn't see where it went. So I guess sometimes you'd go down into a deeper tunnel system or a way to like, I don't know, there's probably, if it's water, there's probably some kind of pipes with like wheels that you turn the pipes off. I mean, there's got to be some way to operate all this stuff. It's not just like a pit and then nothing. So, but there's people always try to get in, and we've been looking ourselves how to get into more tunnels ever since we've been in a few of them and they got closed off. Those openings can go anywhere, but I did try to map them all recently and sort out like the electric from the water, and to try to find out which ones you could get into deeper, like learning backwards that way, crossing off the other stuff. So I am working on something, and I want to show you. I was going to put it in the book, but it's basically a map of all the entire underground, and it's going to be on like layers of clear pages. So I'm just looking for the right printer, but people have been asking for it for so long, and I want to share that. It was supposed to be part of the book, but I just couldn't afford it. It was like a massive amount of money to do these clear pages. So I will work on something that I could share with everybody in the near future on that.
How did you get people to open up to you when you were asking questions? I mean, did you have friends and family that could have been working in Camp Hero at some point? I mean, how did you get some of the information? I don't need all your sources. Okay, I'm just wondering, like, in general.
I have friends and family that worked at Montauk at B&L. And my father worked at Sperry, the company that built the radar. He didn't work there when they built it. He worked there a long time ago. Like after that, I mean. but the same company that built it is where he worked at one point. So there's a lot of like basic connections like that. And I know a lot of families, this was like a big military area, Long Island, before it turned into like a suburb kind of later. But at first there was, so what you're left with is like a lot of people and families that have military connections and like ex-employees of this place or that. So you hear things from them, even sometimes they don't want to talk about it and we don't want to push them. And that's part of what I said in the book. Like I opted out of asking some people that were close to me in that way and pressuring them. I didn't want to do it, but I just made my guesses and they kind of hinted at some things. Other people, there's a lot of rumor, and the way I come about getting stories from people is that like we just start talking about it together, that we both enjoy the topic, and you know, we start getting into it, and they just tell me everything really, usually right off the bat, and I ask them if it's okay. And that's why I did most of these as anonymous. I just figured, let's just protect everybody and just say basically who they are and what they told me. So there is a part of the book like that where there's, you know, it's just you're trusting me that these are the stories that I took down. So, and those literally are, and I wrote them down over the years. So I have like all these old papers, you know, with all these notes that I've carried around. That part of it is very old, that part of the book. So.
Oh yeah, I can imagine that people would be hesitant to talk about this because, well, first of all, it was pretty tragic with a lot of the stuff that happened there. But I mean, just there's, I guess, the trauma of it all, and also I would think that some people would feel like they might get threatened if they talked about it.
Yeah. There's been a lot of people who expressed or gave me stuff to show, like pictures or whatever it may be, and they definitely felt like that. And they've even asked me a lot if I felt like that. And honestly, I've always just talked right to people, like even the superintendent of the park and stuff. And when I was on the history show, I was interviewed by an ex-CIA agent, Barry Eisner. And then again, I had some close interviews with people who were, you know, I think Jennifer Marshall, she was ex-Navy. So she had some input for me on some of her stories. She's Max's mom on Stranger Things. Yeah, the girl. So basically, I did have some people give me some insights and share some things on like a certain levels. And yeah, I mean, it just, they said they respected that certain ways that I did it, you know, and that was good enough for me, that I didn't want to push anybody like and press them on certain things. I know when to not ask anymore, I guess is what I'm saying.
Well, that's good. Well, I'm glad that people opened up to you about this. Because you might be the only person that has written anything of this nature in the depths that you have written all this in. Wow. And put the boots on the ground research in. I mean, you're a literal boots on the ground field researcher when it comes to Montauk. Yeah. And this story is so important, the history of it, because there are a lot of people who were affected by the Montauk program.
Yes.
And you met a lot of those people, a good group. We had about 20 something people with us up in Montauk last year.
That was an amazing time. Yeah. I got to meet a lot of the key people that I've heard of, that I've heard their names for years. You know, I've never met James before. And just, I mean, I've heard of Alondra and Arcane, and I've heard their names so many times over the years that it was cool to meet everybody and hear their stories. And I didn't even get to hear a lot of it. Like I heard it after the fact, when it was so busy when I was there. Like my car broke down in Camp Hero of all places, which is not surprising to me. But it just happened that day that I had to take the train. I got the car home eventually, and then took the train back the next day, and I only had a day. So it was, I did what I could and sat in on as much as I could. But you guys got to enjoy, you know, a lot more time with everybody. So that's why I really appreciated the documentary. I got to see all those interviews that went on for hours and hear a lot of the stories that way too. But we all had a great time. It was filled with excitement and adventure, and just everybody was exploring and filming and going every which way. It was a huge group. It was a lot of fun.
It was fun. I don't know if you were still there. I don't know if you were there that day. You might have been when the security guard came up at the radar tower. Were you there?
First day we were there, yeah.
Okay, because Mike, Long Island Bigfoot and I took off walking the opposite direction, right?
I went in with you guys, yeah.
So, but the security guard came in. So I think this is an important little tidbit here, because some people, not us, we got out of there. We didn't get in trouble. Okay, but there was some. The security guard came to see if anybody was like trespassing or something, right at the radar tower, and nobody was trespassing. Okay, so, but
No.
I was way back at the truck at that point, and but when we walked back up to talk to the security guard, half of the people with us saw I saw a Caucasian man with white hair pulled back in a ponytail with a mustache. That's what I remember seeing. The other half of our group saw an African American man. Okay, and described him completely differently. So it was really odd that half of our group saw one person and the other half described him completely differently. And so it makes sense that it was, I mean, we had like long discussions over this. Okay, about that security guard.
That sounds like the old pair that used to go and chase and chase us all the time and arrest everybody. And
oh, really?
It was a pair, and you just described them perfectly. Like,
but it was one man though.
Oh yeah, well one guy that looked like two different people.
It was one guy, but everybody was describing him differently. But we all saw him.
The two descriptions sound like the two guys that used to run around. That's all.
But what if it was just one guy chasing you around? It could have been one guy that was morphing.
Well, there shouldn't be anybody really anymore except for just police there. So it's like there shouldn't have been anybody back then. That's really interesting. And we did tell them, around that time of day, somebody always comes to check. Like, I just don't even go near the end of the day because that's a good time. We went there once at night just to take pictures not too long ago. And as soon as we pulled in, we drove right in. The cops were sitting there in the parking lot, like waiting. And I talked to them. I asked them, I'm like, can I take pictures here? And they're like, no, you got to go. I'm like, oh, well, how about just at the bluffs? And they're like, no, you got to go. I was like, oh, what about this? And they're like, no. I'm like, all right, I tried 3 times. I'm going to give up. But they were there. They were literally sitting right there in front of the radar. And I wonder how often they do that.
I don't know. Well, you got to listen, if you're an urban explorer, like a couple of us here, you just got to know, you got to know what to look out for. That's all. And to be safe. Safety first, right? Safety first.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, speaking of safety, okay, and I don't know if this is safe or not, there's potentially cryptids on that property out there. And there's one in particular, and I've got Long Island Bigfoot up on the screen right now. Hey, Mike.
Hey, Mike.
He took us around, and so did you. Kind of to look for Junior potentially. Tell the audience about Junior and what's going on with that.
Okay, yeah, Junior is from the original book, like the Montauk Project, and basically Junior is like the catalyst that was some say brought about in different ways. Like some describe a portal that opened, but others just said that he was created from thought, from the Montauk chair, which is like a device people would sit in to create matter and other things before they got into time travel, as the story goes. So Junior was conjured to like destroy the base when they said in Duncan's ear, the time is now, supposedly. And Junior came, but Junior, as we know, is described almost like a Bigfoot, or he has like a snout sometimes, so almost described like a wolf, as they did mention the word wolf, but you see ears, but also he's described as a Sasquatch. So it's a mix. So there were photographers that went and tried to take pictures to recreate the original photo from the radar onto the Battery 112. It's a bunker, and Junior's like on top of it. So these photographers from Brooklyn came out here and they got even better shot of Junior, like high def, and he really looks like a Sasquatch this time. So I printed both those versions in the book. And then there's a couple other versions of Junior people took from like a helicopter tour and this other one. I got on the roof and took a picture. I didn't see any Junior because it was like July and the bushes were like all grown. But the point is, we did look, and then so we went to that location, and Mike actually got some like downloads there. And I do believe that there was some kind of entity, that was seen that day, and that maybe stuck in that spot, like somehow maybe from now and then you can see it, or maybe it's, he's there somewhere stuck, or maybe not. Maybe it's an ancient Native American thing that's always been here. And maybe because they were doing experiments, they ripped something open and just brought it to the forefront that day. Whatever it may be, something happened and something destroyed the base, according to the legend. And then right after the base was destroyed by people in the project who didn't want any part of what they were doing anymore, because that was like in serious, like black project area. Some guys like rebelled and sabotaged it. So basically after the base was like completely empty, they came in with a whole bunch of dump trucks and just took everything out. A whole bunch of concrete trucks came in and poured cement down all of the underground shafts and tunnels. And then I had like a crack squad come through and just like eliminate anything that was left, if you know what I mean. And so like when we found that reel to reel, it was on the side of the road in which they would have loaded up the dump trucks and came around to drive out of the base in a straight line. The only way dump trucks could navigate through that base would be to go on Old Montauk Highway, which is where we found this reel. So I could just picture like a whole dump truck full of reel to reels and stuff, and then like MK Ultra music, whatever the heck's on there, and it bounces off onto the side of the road, and then we find it like decades later. Mike found it.
So you're talking about like the round reels that like had movies on them or audio on them, or like the old school stuff, audio. Like tapes, right?
Yeah, that's it. Yep.
Okay.
Mike found one on that road, off the side of the road. When
Mike found one?
Yeah, Mike, Long Island Bigfoot, and Danielle, me, and Dark Hour Paranormal were walking, and he just like found it. So he called us over, and we took it home, and I brought it, like eventually we had it for years. It's like a long story. So many people turned me down, and I rode with some very sketchy people all the way to Brooklyn in the van with them. And we got this studio set up and rented, and we transferred it onto a tape, except I never got a copy of this tape. I've been meaning, and everybody always asked me. They said our mics were hot and recorded our voices over the sound, because they recorded the whole reel they spooled it onto a new reel for me, which I just sent out again, and it got turned down again. So I have to update everybody. But the stuff we did here is very crazy. It's like backwards music and some like messages over it forwards. It's very like, it's hard to listen to. And so I never got a copy, but I did stick my GoPro in the headphone ear, and I got a couple minutes worth, because those guys to this day never gave me the tapes, and I don't even know who they really were now anymore. I don't know who I rode with that day to get that done. So who knows?
You said backwards music. You know, that's like in the 1980s. You know, people would say like, you know, you listen to a record backwards, and it's like satanic, right? Satanic stuff. So like, do you think that there's like some sort of, because I've been talking a lot about like, this is wild, but I've been talking a lot about the cryptids and the Satanism connection and the rituals. Dennis Carroll's in the chat. Hey, Dennis, with Hunting the Shadows. He was on the show last night. We talked about this, and you know, there's high levels of government, and in the military, there's Satanism going on, they say. Okay, so could this have been a part of the Montauk Project?
Well, there's definitely an aspect of that happening on the property, no matter if it's like, you know, sanctioned or not by the powers that be. There's people that have been doing that there for a long time, and it's always been rumored. I can't say I've never seen it in person, because I literally have, and even kind of, I'm not sure if I recorded it once, or I'll just say that for now. And then there's another thing that we recorded once that's also equally disturbing that I can't really say on here, but it is there if you look. So there's some evidence of that happening there, and I do think that the powers that be are doing that as well. And I was just watching a show similar to that, The Strain, I think it was. And these beings are like vampires, but they look like rakes, but they are like your typical ghoul too, as described, like the D&D ghoul, like the long tongue. And it was like vampirism, but it was combined with some other theories. It was interesting, and the government was involved, and also, you know, they were kind of like demonic. So everything you just said was kind of, it's a theory that I've seen kicked around a lot lately, and I do believe that, of course, if somebody's going to be doing something that evil, it would probably be some kind of black project or something. So it makes sense in that way, at least.
Well, what better way to? I mean, they're opening portals there, obviously. I mean, that's got to be part of the program. There were portals open. That's what CERN's doing. That's what these Large Hadron Colliders are doing all over the place. All this micro radiation. I mean, and there's no telling what all would convert.
Yeah. Like that, and making chimeras, like genetic experimentation, like offshore, and just playing God in general, like maybe even time travel. But a lot of these things where humans are trying to play God always end badly. They don't end well. So hopefully we can like slow our roll on some of these things, at least.
Yeah.
That's my hopes.
No, there's no slow rolling, man. It seems like they kicked it into high gear.
This year it's already like
it's kicked into high gear, and I know you were mentioning like the microwave stuff, the radiation that was going on. I mean, we're getting hit with microwave radiation just from stuff in the sky.
Exactly, you're so right, because that's what cell phone towers are emitting 5 gigs of microwave, an
Mhm.
omnidirectional in every direction. So it's an
Yeah.
antenna that goes out in every direction. That's exactly what they switched to on the top of the Montauk radar, that big pole.
Yeah.
That's an omnidirectional microwave radar.
It's-
That was like the prototype for a general cell tower. It's for
yeah.
communications, but there are side effects that they're not telling people, at least on the auditory sense. So it's
Yeah.
literally they have it so they can have the deaf hear sentences, and they have apparatuses built for like medical reasons using the same technology. So
Wow. Well, it's pretty terrifying, the things that happened there and the things that are happening now. Okay, it's like on a
yeah,
larger scale now, and they're doing it to all of us. And some of this with the MK Ultra, the microwave stuff.
yeah.
Yeah,
And
we're
the
getting hit.
internet
It's not.
started there.
It's
I
like
know it's almost
yeah.
over.
It's like they started at Montauk. They did their experiments, and now it's like widespread. But I don't know. That's just my opinion.
You're
Okay,
right.
not the opinions of Spaced Out Radio, y'all. It's just my opinion.
No, you're right,
Okay.
because like literally the internet that
Yeah.
we're all using right now was actually started partially at Montauk. Like they rolled out and tested at Montauk with 13 other places, but Montauk
Yeah.
was one of them. Before, like if you've ever heard of ARPANET, that started the internet basically from DARPA. It was actually SageNet. The Sage radar was the reason
Oh
that they built the
no.
actual wide area networks, circuit boards, modular circuit packaging, microchips. All that stuff was rolled out and tested at Montauk. I was like, yo, this is mind blowing. We're literally using everything, and it always goes back. Like it's a very important spot in time, I guess you would say. So
In
I think that
time.
all has
Time is the
something to
word,
do with it.
man.
Yeah, I know it's almost over.
And we've run out of time. Oh my
Yes, we
gosh.
have.
I want to, well, first of all, I want to thank Kathleen Michael. Thank you for that super sticker. And Amy, thank you for that super sticker. Amy's from up at Montauk. She had spent a lot of her teenage years and stuff up at Montauk. So thank you for being here. Oh my gosh. And my friend Mimi. What's up, Mimi Lee? Thank you so much for that super sticker. Thanks, girl. I appreciate you. Okay, let's get to your book real quick, because before we go, we're running out
Yeah,
of time,
yeah,
and
you're right.
we have to promote your book. You guys,
Thank
please
you.
go buy
It's
Brian's
a
book.
big
You
book.
guys,
Is my beat
yes.
up copy, but it's like 4 pounds and like 430 pages and a lot of pictures and sources and stuff.
Oh
And
yeah,
there's also
Montauk Is Strange. Yeah, tell the audience. I'm sorry. I'm going to be putting it in the live chat for everybody.
Oh,
Okay.
thank you. Yeah, you got it. I was just there's a print version and the ebook, but the print version is like the textbook kind of, if you want it. There's a lot of pictures, a lot of sources, documents, blueprints, maps, all that stuff, and all that stuff I talked about tonight. Everything I could is in there. Everything I could fit.
It's the most thorough book on Montauk and the Montauk Project and everything that went on there at Camp Hero, you guys. So please purchase Brian's book, you guys. He's put so much into this book, and it is amazing. And I am so proud of you. And
Thank
I
you
think
so much
it's so important, Brian.
I
Oh,
really
you're
appreciate
welcome.
you having me on, and because I've been like slow promoting it, so I like the kick in the butt here. This is great.
Oh, I'm really good at kicking people in their butts. Okay.
Excellent.
I am.
I need
Oh my
that.
gosh, well, Brian, please, good luck with your book and everything, and please come back and hang out with us some more.
Absolutely.
You're like the missing link to a lot of this stuff. You know what I
I like
mean?
that.
You're putting the missing link, all that information out there for the public, and for
Thank you.
that, I thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Okay, awesome, Brian. Well, I'll see you soon. Thank you so
Yes,
much. It's so
indeed.
good to catch up with you.
Yep. Thank you,
All right.
everybody. Thank you.
Have a great night. We'll see you
You
next
too.
time.
All right.
Okay, see you, Brian. Oh my God, y'all, that was amazing. What a great show. Brian is one of my favorites, y'all. And he is the top of the tier when it comes to the information on Montauk, and super great guy. Okay, well, you guys, please go over to After Hours. They are getting started up right now. We have Swamp Dweller in the house tonight over on Mr. Rob G's show tonight. You guys, please come see me this week on my channel, The Cryptid Huntress, over on YouTube. I will be there Wednesday, and I will be having shows Thursday and Saturday on my channel as well, but they will be premiering. Okay, I'm going to record those before I go to Reno, Nevada with Spaced Out Radio. I will be there Thursday. Well, actually, I'll be there Friday. It's Friday. I was trying to think about my show on Thursday. I'll be there Friday. We're going to have a party over there Friday night, and we'll be broadcasting live, me, Dave Scott, and Rob G all together live. So please come see us over there. It's going to be a hoot. I can promise you that. We will be online, so you guys can watch us online on YouTube. All right, y'all, have a great week. Come see me over on my channel, and thank you guys so much for being here. Thanks for the super chats. I'll see y'all next time. Bye.